Annalane. Welcome to part 2 of our Earth Day Instagram live event. So, as we learned in the last video, we learned all about our 5 senses. So, just to review, we have sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. And we're going to put all of those into practice by making some naan pizza. So, this is a super easy way to make pizza without having to make the dough, and you can do it with all sorts of things like bagels, English muffins, and whatever bread you have. So we're going to take our naan. I'm going to take the 2 pieces and put them on our tray. And so while we make it, so we're using our 5 senses while we do this. So both when we go to eat it, but then also making it. So right now, you can use your sense of touch. Feel the bread, bumpy, kind of cold because this was frozen, but you can feel the different texture where the air bubbles are. Doesn't really smell like anything. Next up, we're going to add our sauce. So we can use our sense of sight to see that it's red. You can smell it. You can smell the tomatoes and herbs in it. We'll taste it later, but we're going to sprinkle on our sauce. Look at the sauce. See how the color changes depending on how thick it is. Awesome. Next up, we have some fresh herbs to add. So today we have thyme and rosemary. Even though it's still cold outside, you can still have little pots of herbs in your kitchen, so then you can have fresh herbs all year round. We just learned how to plant some, so in a few weeks, hopefully you can have pots of fresh herbs to use in your cooking as well. So for the thyme, we're going to use some of our senses to explore it. So you can look at the size of the leaves. See, the leaves are pretty tiny and green. They have an even shape. You can feel them. They're smooth. You can rub it between your fingers and smell it. You can smell like the earthy fragrance. Then you can taste a piece too. Tastes very similar to how it smells. And then we're going to take a few leaves and add them to our pizza. We'll have one be a thyme pizza and we'll make the other one a rosemary pizza. And so even though the sauce already has some herbs in it, this will just help improve the flavor. You can feel the difference in the texture on like the front of the leaf, which is smoother, and the back of the leaf, which is bumpy. And you can do this with herbs or really all things. So next up we have our rosemary. So we can see that it looks pretty different than the thyme. So this one, they're both green, but this one has long, skinny leaves that kind of curve and bend and are a little bit rougher in their texture. This one, again, you can like rub your fingers on the leaves and then smell your fingers to smell it. And again, that same like earthy scent. I'm not sure how to describe it, so you'll just have to get some rosemary and try it yourself. This one we can also taste. And again, like because smell and taste are so connected, it smells pretty similar, or it tastes pretty similar to how it smells. But we'll add on some rosemary pieces to this pizza. I think the green adds like a nice pop of color. And so depending on what herbs and spices you have at your house, you can use dried herbs that come like this and you can shake them on and you can still do the same thing, smelling them and tasting them. Or if you have fresh herbs, it's always fun to use those, just whatever you have at your house. All right, next up, the cheese. So, looking at the cheese, we can see that it's white and it's shredded cheese. It feels like a little bit, feels kind of dry and stringy, but smooth. So using all of your senses, does it smell like anything? Still smelling all of the rosemary. So we'll add a little more cheese. We can look at the difference in the colors that we see between the red, the white, and the green. Sprinkle some cheese on. At the bottom. So we'll add a little more because I like a nice and cheesy pizza. And then if you have more toppings in your house, like pepperoni, peppers, mushroom, sausage, you could add those to your pizza as well. And then to give it a little spice, we'll add some red pepper flakes. And so these, we can smell them. You can smell that it's definitely red pepper. It smells spicy. Pour a few in my hands. You can look at the color. You can see some are red, some are yellow. Some are like the pepper, some are the seeds. And we can try those. You can taste that, like the heat and the spice. All of those things. We'll add a few more spices to the top of our pizza. And then I've already preheated the oven to 425. So then we're going to put it in the oven for 8 minutes. And while we wait for it, we're going to talk to Erin about Earth Day and some cool Earth Day activities we can do. Hold on 1 second. Let me find her. So we're just waiting for Erin to join. She should be on in just a second. And then, oh, here she is. Hi, Erin. What are some Earth Day activities we can do?
Hello. So my dad is helping me with the filming on this Earth Day. So I have 2 different activities that I'm going to show you guys how to do for 2 different age groups. So the first one I'm going to be showing you is a great one for younger kids, especially if you're thinking about doing any of those color or sensory explorations that Carrie was talking to us about in the first live stream. So I'm going to show you guys how to make a pair of binoculars, or if you want to, if you're feeling more of like a pirate explorer rather than just an everyday explorer, you could do a telescope. Right here I have reduce, reuse, recycle on this telescope. So I'm going to show you guys how to make a pair of binoculars using recyclable materials. So for this, I used a paper towel roll. You can also use toilet paper rolls. We just didn't have any of those on hand. Maybe it's related to the shortage. I don't know. So the first thing that you have to do is poke a hole in the side of your toilet paper. So if you're a young kid, this is something you're definitely going to want to have your parent help you out with, or any sort of adult. So what I do with that is I take the scissors, kind of pinch the roll a little bit, make a tiny cut, and then you can stick the scissors in there and kind of swivel it around to make the opening a little bigger. So that's the first step with this. And for decorating them, really, you can do whatever you want. If you want, you could color these with markers, crayons, colored pencils. On this pair, I used an old community newspaper from Flint that I wrapped around these. But for this one, I had a scrap of wrapping paper downstairs left over that was too small to be used for anything else. So I'm actually going to be wrapping my toilet paper pieces here with wrapping paper. So this is kind of just whatever you want to make it. it would be a really fun craft to kind of keep kids entertained for a little bit and then use when we aren't getting snow outside for the kids to come go explore, use those senses, do something. So I am rolling up pieces of tape on the side here and kind of smushing them down. And I'm going to put the piece of paper so it's touching half of the tape, and I'm going to wrap it all the way around and stick it on the other side. So that's my first one, and I'm going to do it again for the second one. Over.
Awesome. Can you make the two different sides different colors?
Oh, of course you can. You can do whatever you want. If you want to color one, wrap the other one in newspaper, you can do that. It's however you want to be creative. You could cover them in stickers if you have those. It's however you want to make these. So I've wrapped those. This one might need a little more tape on this side. Kind of ran out there on the end. So I have my two pieces here now wrapped. The important part for this next bit is you want to make sure that the holes that you punched are on the outside of your binoculars, because that's where you're going to put your string or ribbon through. So you just want to make sure that those are on the outside. For this, I'm going to put a piece of tape right in the center here and flatten that out just like that. I take my other one and kind of smush it up against it. And then I'm going to actually wrap the whole thing in a piece of tape just because I want to make sure that it stays stuck together, since I won't have a wrapping like I did in this one. So I'm just going to take a longer piece of tape, and we're just going to kind of wrap it around the whole thing, just like that. That's going to be my designed wrapped just like that. And because we're celebrating 50 years of Earth Day, I'm going to write Earth Day and 50 years. Just like that. So those are going to be my...
It looks great.
I have made one pair of these, so at this point, I'm basically an expert at making toilet paper binoculars. Here, I just took some of my mom's wrapping ribbon that was downstairs, but you can also use string or really any other sort of like twine that you can find around your house. So for this, I'm just going to tie a couple of knots here to make sure that it stays. So this is also the curling ribbon, so it's a little difficult to tie. But I mean, this is sort of, apparently I can't tie and talk at the same time. This, I mean, once again, you could have any sort of color that you want for this. If a kid wanted to, braid some like bracelet strings, they could have a real fashionable strap for theirs. I'm just doing a simple ribbon tie just because it was what we had hanging around. So right there, this is a little longer. I have our binoculars right there ready to go and do the sensory exploration in the garden for when it stops snowing and it's nice to go outside. Then I can look for all those colors that Carrie was talking about in the first live stream. So these binoculars and, well, I guess telescope, once again, if you're feeling like a pirate explorer, these are a really fun craft for the younger kids. And it's just a great way for them to use their creativity, but also use some of those recyclable materials just hanging around the house. And it's a great way to just inspire them to get out and explore and celebrate everything that Earth has to offer us. So that's our first craft. And our next one is a little bit more of a science experiment for older kids. So I'm actually going to show you how kind of taking some of the ideas that we learned from Miss Carrie in the first video with planting seeds. I'm going to show you how to kind of turn that into your own little experiment. So we're going to be making shoebox mazes. And so this is where, here, I'll show you the finished one first. So this is one I had previously made. So it's just an old shoebox that we had sitting downstairs. And I added in these little grow barriers around here. And down in this little cup at the bottom, I planted some of these snap pea seeds. So what I'm seeing is if the little plants, if they will grow up around these and out this hole in the top. So it's just a challenge to see how much plants will grow towards the sunlight. So I keep it closed like this, and I'll only open it to water it to make sure that the soil stays sort of wet, but otherwise it stays closed. So I'm going to show you how you can make one. So here I've already cut a hole in the top of the box. Once again, you may need to have an adult help you cut this. It can be sort of difficult, so just to make sure you're staying safe with that, that's a good idea to do. The next part is this extra hole here, we're going to want to make sure that that's covered because we only want one hole in the top where the light is going to get through down into the box for the seed. So I'm using just a leftover tissue box that we also had in our recycling. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off a piece here and just fold it over this extra hole in the top to block that off. And I'll use some tape to tape it down. So I'm just going to rip that off here. I'm getting my piece of tape here.
Erin, what could you use if you didn't have a shoebox?
I mean, really any sort of like box or container that you have where you can make, the one thing is you have to make sure you can open it because you want to be able to open it so you can water your little seed. So any sort of box that you have, if there's like you could even do this in like a plastic container, as long as there's a lid you can take off and on, or if there's like a hole that can let through some sunlight, or any sort of like leftover jar that's like big enough. If you have like a orange juice carton, you could kind of cut a hole in the front that you make your own door. So you can really just use like a lot of different materials as long as there's only one spot for light to get in and something that you can open and close so you can water the seed, because if you can't water the seed, then it's just going to die. You won't be able to see if it works at all. So
wow, so there are lots of different ways you can make it depending on what materials you have at home.
So the possibilities are practically endless. So for this one, I'm gonna do a little bit of a different variation from the maze in the other box. For this one, I already have one piece of my tissue box cut, and I'm gonna do one right in the center here, like that. So this is gonna get taped right in here, and I'll end up having my little seed down below here in the cup, and I'm gonna see if as it grows, if it will be able to grow up and around this piece towards where the light's gonna come up here. The thing is that's very important when you're cutting the size of the squares inside is you want to make sure that they come all the way out to the front of the box or whatever container you're using. So you can kind of check to see if it comes to the line here, then you know that it comes out far enough, because or otherwise the plant might just grow around. If it were only this wide here, then the plant would just grow right around the front of it and grow up towards the light. So we really want to make the plants work hard to see how well this experiment works. So for this, sometimes it's easier if you have the box tipped on its side for when you first tape it in here. So this is pretty long, so I'm probably going to trim off a little bit on the side here. And I'm going to peel off a couple of pieces of tape. This works better if you have a friend who can help hold the piece of cardboard while you tape it, just because otherwise it might fall down a little bit. So we'll see how well this works. So I'm going to rip off a few of those pieces, just like that. Put in this here. And I'm just kind of putting on the tape in an L shape. So it's touching this piece of cardboard that I'm attaching in, and it's also sticking to the box or container that I'm putting in. So you'll be able to see this when I turn it up in a second. And on this one, because it's not attached to the sides here, I'm going to want a lot of tape. And you want to put it both on the top and the bottom. And hold it. I'm going to do a couple more pieces. Just like that. That should be all right. So then when it goes up like this, it will stay standing like that, and I'll plant a seed, one of these seeds here. I won't go over how to do that because we saw it in the last live stream with Carrie, but you want to find a seed like a snap pea or a bean, because those are really good at kind of vining out. And so in this one, I just used a red Solo cup down here at the bottom that I cut really short. But if you have a tiny jar, like glass jar leftover from, or even like a leftover yogurt container or something like that, you can put soil in there and then plant your bean seeds. And you just
Erin.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I have a question about the bean seeds. Yeah. So do you need to use bean seeds that are like from a nursery or garden center? Or can you use bean seeds that you buy at the grocery store in like the grocery aisle?
You can use bean seeds that you find in the regular grocery aisle. If you use bean seeds from the garden center, those just have a germination rate that has been like tried and true. With the bean seeds found in the grocery section, because those are supposed to be used for soups or other foods, they just don't have any germination testing. So like, it's a little more of a crapshoot on whether it's going to sprout. It might not. This is with the garden center, it's just a little more likely that you'll get something that will grow. And so, yeah, with the container at the bottom, you'll plant in there. The one thing Miss Carrie told us to poke holes in the bottom. In this case, I did not poke any holes in the bottom because I don't want the water going through and getting this box super soggy. I have my cup taped on the bottom so it won't move. But if you did put like a little plate or something below it inside the box, then you could poke holes in whatever container you're using for your plant maze. So this plant maze that I have set up here, I'm going to be taking pictures every single day while it grows, and later you'll be able to check out a video on our Instagram page to look at the progress of the bean seeds that I have in there. So we'll see if it works.
Awesome. I can't wait to see how it all turns out. So we will come back and join you in a little bit to talk about Earth Day. But for right now, we are going to get back to the rest of our mindful tasting. So let me just put the camera back. So now our pizza is all done, and it's time to use our five senses again, but this time tasting it. So just putting your hands over it, you can tell that it's hot, but it should have cooled enough by now. That will be okay. So now I'm going to take a knife and cut off a piece of it so we can look at just one small piece with our five senses. So first up, use our eyes so we can see that the cheese has turned yellow in some places instead of white. We can see the little hints of green from the herbs that we added. We can see the red from the tomato sauce. We can see little bubbles from the cheese where it's melted. We can see little bits of brown on the crust and on the cheese. We can see, what else do we see? We can see the dough, like the texture of the dough. And then when we feel it, we can see that it feels a little rough, maybe like a little sandpapery feeling on the top and on the bottom of the naan. The tomato sauce feels much hotter than the bread. Let's see, what else? What's next? So we have touch, sight, smell. So we can really smell the thyme, because this is our thyme pizza. And all of that, you can smell the tomato. Can't really smell the bread, but that's okay. Let's see, sound. That's a tricky one. So let's see. If you tap on it, you can hear kind of like a hollow thud-ish against the bread. You could rip it, and maybe it'll make like a little bit of a noise as it rips. But sound can be a little tricky when eating. Next up, the one you've been waiting for, taste. Take a little bite, and you can taste the heat from the red pepper flakes that we added. You can taste the tomato, the bread, taste, and then once you're eating it, you can think of different adjectives that you might use to describe it. So is it savory or sweet? So this one's definitely savory. And then another one, like another adjective pair, like, so in our garden exploration with Mr. Diego, we talked about finding like big things and small things and hard things and soft things. And you can do the same thing with your pizza. So the pizza is pretty soft. We could also look at if it is hot or cold. So it's hot. And so by doing things in pairs, it's a good way to come up with like opposite pairs. It's a good way to come up with different describing words for it. So let's see. So did we get all of our senses? So we had sight, touch, smell, sound, and taste. So got them all. So I'm going to keep eating this later, but right now, let's go back to Erin and learn a little bit more about some Earth Day activities we can do and why we celebrate Earth Day. So let me just add her back in 1 second. There we go. Now we're just waiting for her to join. Hold on. So she should be back on in just a second. Here she is.
Hey.
All right, Erin. So what is Earth Day? Why do we celebrate it? What are some ways we can help the Earth?
So Earth Day sort of started as a movement to kind of remind us that we need to take care of our planet. It was sort of an environmental movement. It started in Wisconsin, and it has now spread globally. So, I mean, millions of people participate in this day every single April on the 22nd. And so the importance of it is really, even though it's just one day, we need to be thinking about it all year, that we're doing this we need to do things to take care of our planet year round. But Earth Day is just kind of a reminder of that. So
Awesome. So what are some things that we can do at home to help our planet?
Some of the things that are easy to do at home are remembering to turn off the lights when you aren't in that room, when you leave a room. When you're brushing your teeth, don't leave the faucet running. Make sure that you're recycling things when you can. So any like glasses, pop cans, jars, things like that. Even if you go clothes shopping, considering shopping at a secondhand store is a great way to kind of, that whole reduce, reuse, recycle mindset. So that's also another great way to reduce your environmental impact.
Awesome. What are some things we could do to help the earth while we eat, like through the food that we eat?
So definitely eating local, a great way to do that. Obviously in FoodCorps, we love gardening. So any sort of time when you, for example, we were looking at pizza today. So deciding to, probably not now, but when it's nicer in Michigan, you can get a lot of the ingredients from your garden. So if you were to make a pizza with a bunch of ingredients from the garden, instead of ordering a pizza and having a delivery driver bring it out to you, right there, that's cutting down on those carbon dioxide emissions. So just kind of thinking about that with food, and even with that in the process of growing it, if you're growing organically, so not using any pesticides or things like that, you're reducing what's going to be washed into our waterways. So that's also another thing to consider when you grow your own food, how you can kind of help the environment with doing that. And in addition, even though it's not food, but another thing to keep in mind are the pollinators, protecting those. I have my shirt here, my pollinator shirt. And it's great to think about if you plant a pollinator garden to look at native varieties to whatever state you're in, and also trying to find plant varieties that bloom throughout the year. So there are a lot of guides online that can let you know about those. In Michigan, we have native plants at msu.edu, and then there's also the Michigan Native Plant Producers Association, and they have lists of plants that you can go and look up that bloom through spring all the way through the fall. So that's really good to help those pollinators get the energy that they need.
Yeah, it's good for pollinators, and it makes your garden look good because you have flowers in it all year long. Let's see. Are there any other tips that we should know about how we can help the earth at home?
Well, I know it's a little bit of a struggle right now with everything going on with coronavirus, but hopefully we'll get to a point that we can come back and use our own reusable bags at the grocery store. I have these reusable produce bags that I love using because I cut down on plastic. And also, in addition to that, I'm going to show off our lovely FoodCorps bag. It's great to bring your own bags to the grocery stores just to cut out on that plastic usage. I know we can't do that right now, but it's something to look forward to in the future.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Erin, and thanks everybody for joining us. I hope you all have a great day and can get outside and enjoy this Earth Day. Bye.
Bye.